and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report. We have a lot of special days of the Damage Report, pretty much 5 a week. But Wednesdays are always special because they're the big news days for whatever reason. That remains true today. But I want to start off the big news of this Wednesday with the big news that J.R. Jackson is off on vacation right now, replaced totally not at the last moment by the always awesome, loyal, and reliable Brett Erlich. Brett,
what's funny is JR definitely told you, but I'm certain it was in an email to the entire TYT morning meeting thing, which you're on. I will also say this.
I don't doubt that he did.
John, I'm not done speaking.
You might be. You might be.
If it was just you involved in the booking, I would blame it on you completely for not remembering this information, for not coordinating this information. The fact that the people who handle you also were taken by surprise, I think it's a higher level thing. Like I have more confidence in their ability to plan events than you. Now, is that difficult to have more confidence in them than I have in you to plan events? No. For you to suggest events, 100%. John motivates people to do it. But actually, John, what time should I be at your house?
Stop.
Whenever. What, you know?
Yes.
If we want food, maybe, but maybe not. I don't know. Whatever.
It's been like over a year since that happened, and you still remember. That's good. Anyway, I'm still thankful that you're here. Less than a few minutes ago, but still generally thankful. Anyway, JR is having a much needed vacation. I hope that he really enjoys it. Although he chose really the wrong day to leave because it's Matt Gaetz Day here on the Damage Report. We don't generally really talk about him, mostly because of his whole personality and face and all that. Also his politics, but we have a pretty good reason to. So we're gonna be getting to that very soon after a bit of domestic political news. So definitely stay tuned for that. Also stay tuned because there is at least, I'd say, a 15% chance, it's going up and down, that I might pass out for reasons I don't totally understand about my heart rate right now. So you might get to see me pass out on camera. So don't leave for that reason as well. But if you are here, and you are because you're hearing me ask the question, please hit the like button and share the stream so the people know we're live. And as we go through this hour, you can send us comments, tweets, super chats, all of that, and we will respond as we go. Also wanted to let you know, very exciting news happening today on the network on The Conversation. Dr. Rashad Richey, that's all you should need to know, is that it's Dr. Rashad Richey, but that's not all you need to know. You also need to know he's talking with Representative Park Cannon about what happened last week when she was arrested. We talked about that on the Damage Report. She was arrested outside of Brian Kemp's office as he was signing that terrible voter suppression bill. She's gonna be doing this exclusive appearance on The Conversation today at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time on tyt.com/live and also on Twitch. That is gonna be an awesome interview, so definitely don't miss it. Anyway, with that, Brett, you ready to do this thing?
Yeah, sure, let's do it.
No, you thought you were, we're not. We're not, because we forgot to do something yesterday. I want to make sure that we do it. We've had some really bad news in this country about the pandemic. And a lot of really irresponsible people are telling other people to be even more irresponsible. So we want to get out in front of this by finding out what you think about the direction that the COVID case count is going to go. It has been rising recently up into the mid 60s. So the question available to you right now at tyt.com/polls/COVID-cases, love the dashes. Anyway, is
everyone, John, let me just help you with this. Just go to tyt.com/polls. You'll see all our polls. And the most recent one is the one John's talking about. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, I'm just doing that from now on. Okay, tyt.com/polls. Will we pass 100,000 new COVID cases each day? Once again, yes or no? This is basically a pessimism meter, but I'm very curious about what everyone thinks. So we're gonna be revealing the results of that poll near the close of the program. And with that said, Brett, now, are you once again ready to do this thing?
Now, yes, now.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. The Biden Infrastructure Week is finally here. It had become like the big political joke, Infrastructure Week. But Biden comes in and a couple of months later, it's actually happening. He's rolling out his plan, although you're gonna wanna take a look at the details because it's not necessarily the plan that we had been expecting. About 8 days ago, we had found out from the New York Times that he was preparing a $3 trillion infrastructure spending plan. Just yesterday, Business Insider reported that they were going to bump the price tag up to $4 trillion. So it's getting bigger with every passing day. Oh, nope, it's here. It's $2 trillion. So I don't know what happened since yesterday, but it's half the size that it once was. It's moving in the exact opposite direction that all of us are during the pandemic. But anyway, it has gotten a bit smaller. And so that's what we have. So we're gonna give you the details, but first of all, Brett, what do you think about the number that they landed on?
It's like watching Bitcoin right now. I don't know. I had a huge FOMO when people were like making billions off of Bitcoin, and I felt bad, so I bought like $100 worth of Bitcoin, and it goes down and then it goes up, and it's doing that while you're watching it. It's like that, except with, instead of seeing if I'll have $102 or $104, it's like, will I be able to drive on American roads or not?
Yes.
So what a lot of us are missing is how fun this is. When you're talking about like doubling or halving the size of the investment in America's infrastructure. Isn't it fun?
Yeah. It's so fun to think about, like, will there be bridges? Maybe. Will there be half as many bridges as there could be? Tune in to find out over the next decade. Anyway, so that's sort of our response. A lot of progressives are not pleased with this. AOC tweeted, "This is not nearly enough. The important context here is that it's 2.25 trillion spread out over 10 years. For context, the COVID package was 1.9 trillion for this year alone, with some provisions lasting 2 years. It needs to be way bigger." Yes, it is. It is very small in comparison to what we've been doing in regards to the pandemic. And as you'll see, it's talking about a lot of different areas of the American economy and infrastructure and healthcare. So when it's doing all of these different things, for the number to be lower than it was supposed to be literally 24 hours ago, not necessarily a great sign, which is not to say that there aren't good things in it. There are, and we're gonna cover some of the big ones. First of all, it plans to invest about 2 trillion over the next 8 years, which is about 1% of America's GDP per year over that time. So another way to look at it, not that huge. Most of it involves upgrading America's roads, bridges, and public transit, but it also expands long-term care for the elderly through Medicaid, bans exclusion zoning, and invests in community-based violence reduction programs, among many other things. And there are a lot of things, like $621 billion in infrastructure spending dedicated to rebuilding the nation's roads, bridges, ports, and rail systems. 300 billion to bolster manufacturing, 213 billion for affordable housing, 380 billion for research and development. I guess just in general, I don't know. Modernizing America's electricity grid, installing high-speed broadband around the country, 400 billion for home and community-based health and elder care. Little things that I like to see, like investing $174 billion in the electric vehicle market, including building out a network of 500,000 EV chargers on roads over the next 9 years. That's significant. I have a lot of criticisms, but that's certainly significant. It also notably, and there should be more coverage of this, eliminates all lead pipes and service lines in drinking water systems and puts 56 billion in grants and flexible loans to states, tribes, and territories to upgrade drinking, wastewater, and stormwater systems. So the idea is we're gonna get rid of the lead in the water, finally, across the country. So that's good, Brett. A lot of good things here. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, exactly what you pointed out proves that we don't have enough information about this, and there will be time to get that information. And in the meantime, progressives are saying it's not enough, right? Which is fine, and like the default position that we should have and should be expected based on experiences with government spending and investment in underserved areas, right? So this is a good position to have. When you say that it fluctuates between when everybody says that it fluctuates between $2 and $4 trillion over the course of a week, just underscores how little information that we have. Maybe the original plan was 8 years and then 16 years, $4.9 trillion or $4 trillion, and now it got halved to 8 and 2. We don't know yet. The other thing is no one knows what anything costs really ever. Okay, so it's weird to me to hear, or at least you need a more developed like invoice with line items and costs if you're gonna criticize it, right? So and we don't have enough information to know if that criticism is valid yet, because right now it's literally press releases from the people who want you to like it. Okay, So there will be time. It must be monitored as it progresses. But in terms of those subject areas and those line items, I like the priorities. I like the priorities being, we got to build roads. We got to build broadband. We have to, in the same way that building the railroads in the Industrial Revolution was very essential for America to develop as a nation economically, even though they did it by terrible, terrible means. We need to lay that fiber now to take us to the next level. And we need to build the roads because we still, even though the cars might not have drivers in them, we need to get stuff from place to place. So I like the priorities and definitely getting the lead out once and for all.
Definitely getting the lead out, that's funny. Yes, so let's turn now to process. We now have at least basic ideas of what the Biden infrastructure plan is supposed to look like. The plan, not the final bill, not even the interim bill, we have that. So let's talk now about what actually happens from here, because when progressives criticize the size of the bill, it's not just that it's not big enough, it's when is it not big enough? And I think that matters. Possibly Brett will disagree. Nobody disagrees with me more on the show than Brett. It's one thing to have it chipped down to 2 trillion as a result of what is going to be a soul shredding process in the Senate, but that's not what's happening here. They're starting at $2 trillion. Now, could it expand in the process? It's hypothetical. You could maybe think of that. And even Joe Manchin had previously said numbers that were higher, but all these, like, we gave details on what's in it. Do we think that there's likely to be more at the end? Maybe. Sometimes there's pork that's put in spending bills. That is possible. My fear is that, like with a lot of the other, like with the COVID stimulus bill, is that it's more likely to shrink than expand once we get into this. And if you're already starting off at a number that many people believe is too small, and it's certainly not, it's not FDR 2.0 like he's been so hyped to consider himself apparently behind closed doors. So, Brett, what do you think about that? About what's going to happen once they actually get into the thick of it?
I love that you say with great optimism, sometimes pork makes its way into the bill. Always pork makes its way into the bill. Frequently, it does end up shrinking the overall size of the bill because it's not just enough to take spending out for massive needed things. In order to whip those votes, you also need to, you need to sweeten the deal by I forget what it was, like classifying refineries in Kentucky with random classifications so they get new tax things for Mitch McConnell back. Anyways, I think that this will be a budgetary bill and probably make its way through the reconciliation process, which narrows which gets rid of a giant hurdle. In the meantime, I think that the Senate will only pick its filibuster battle for HR 1, and depending on the timing of all of this, that will determine whether, I think they're going to do this first and go through reconciliation so they don't have to bother with all that other stuff. I honestly don't know. My guess is, as someone who is native to the Senate, Joe Biden is doing this in the hope that he will win specific votes, specific ways. But then again, that's just my gut, which I'm not trusting in this case because I honestly don't know what their next steps are going to be. Like I'm certain they will go try to get it through the House in some way that is flashier and bigger, and then it'll get to the Senate, who will rewrite it. And I think they're trying their luck with these, like Madison Cawthorn. You voted against it and you're bragging about it. You want to do that again, or you want to get behind laying high-speed internet so the people who've been stuck at home for a long time, you're not going to win this battle anyway. You might as well be able to say you voted for it afterwards.
Well, and it does notably provide for 100% coverage of rural broadband. That's what they're saying, at least. Right. So it's possible that in the House they pass something bigger. They've disagreed with Biden's priorities. That is possible. What do you think about Republicans? Because it's generally, I assume going in, any Biden priority or Dem priority, you're going to get 0 Republicans. This being an infrastructure bill, something that they kept at least pretending they wanted to do while Trump was president, and it putting money into a lot of different states, a lot of different congressional districts. But it's still Biden. So do you think it is possible that in the House or the Senate, they will get any Republicans to sign on to this?
Usually, so with these things that typically party identity revolves around. So infrastructure is a Democratic owned concept. The same way like being good on the economy is typically, when you ask voters, traditionally a Republican owned concept. Things like criminal justice reform is a Democratic owned concept. Things like welfare reform are Republican owned concepts, Republican pitched concepts. With quote welfare reform, you needed a Democrat to get that done, to give those concessions. And with and in this and with criminal justice reform, you needed a Trump to be like, all right, I'll go along with your thing on my terms. In this situation, they don't need Republicans. So I think Republicans aren't going to really go along with it. It's not one of those things that they can do on their terms. So I think it's all just BS messaging for election purposes. And when they do that, they'll try what?
Hold on, because and this ties back to what you were saying before with Madison Cawthorn. Wouldn't some of them want to say that they had delivered all of this money for bridge renovation in their state or whatever?
Well, we're gonna see how that plays out. It probably, they all look around. It's all about messaging and what they can get away with, right? Usually in these situations, Republicans say, well, the reason I'm against it is this abortion funding thing. That's what I was voting against, to step up for you. Obviously, I was good with the rest, but I wanted to go on record, I'm against abortion stuff. Really, that's not that's what they're doing to placate voters. And behind the scenes, they're going with the Chamber of Commerce and saying like, what helps you, what hurts you? Because I think they're going to the big donors who are saying this is all going to be accompanied by a tax increase to pay for it. And I don't want that. So they talk out both sides of their mouths, and we'll see how it goes. And we'll see how much Biden explicitly goes for their support. But to his credit, he hasn't really been doing that at all.
Follow-up question. Were those lights on your pillows before, or is that new?
I'm glad we're getting to the real issues here, John, on the damage report.
This is my transition into the break between stories, but someone had just messaged and I was like, yeah, you're right. There are Christmas lights on his pillows now.
I will tell you why, John.
This is the Brett Erlich infrastructure plan.
They're not always on when I join your show, because your show is a morning show and it's all reliant on whether I remember to do it in the morning. By night, you get real Brett. Real Brett is on his game and he plugs in the Christmas lights.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so before we jump, let's see if you're on your game for this next story, because we're gonna need you for it, buddy. Before we do that though, let's see what's going on with the audience. With Mariah saying 667,000 subscribers. Satan no longer has a hold on this show. Thank you, John and Brett, for bringing us the big news. Yeah, we gotta bid him goodbye. So we've gone from hail Satan to see you, Satan. Maybe at 1.666 we can have fun with Satan again. Franklin Sharpslicer says, do I think Gaetz as a predator more likely than a creditor? Whatever will be his fate, he would have been better to, well, you can finish that rhyme for yourself. Anyway, if he talks the talk and walks the walk, he'd be better on policy than there's a lot of insinuation there, but thank you, Franklin Sharpslicer, for partially censoring yourself. Mephisto says, I can only tell the day of the week by TDR co-host. There's something wrong with the Matrix. Where's Trashy? That's true. We're gonna see what happens on Friday. Maybe we can get JR.
Y'all can still go on the community tab and vote for your garbage person, right? Like who you want it to be this week. So there's that.
You can. Okay, Jesus says happy birthday to me, aka 1234 Dragon. Happy birthday, Jesus. Arya Underfoot says love Brett, but where is JR? He's wandering around somewhere. Lena Peak, hey Lena, says, looks like I will have to save my latest JR's Candy's OnlyFans idea for next week. Sorry, John. PS, please call and email AR governor opposing anti-trans bill. Yes, it is a true shame that we won't get to delve into that once again. Okay, but thank you for the super chat. Sinful Solution says, I love Brett, but seeing him on a Wednesday is gonna mess up my whole week. Man. We've created this sort of stabilizing force of a schedule for people, and it's all been thrown to the winds.
Also for a main show, it's like JR's pitches are I said this for a year and a half. They're the spine of the show. It's just like, okay, we'll have 5 stories that are already in the rundown. And without him, it's just like, I don't know what to do. And I too, on this Wednesday, I'm sad not to have him. And then just one thing, we're all letting JR have his, leaving him be because he never takes time off. And he's taking this week off. But during Big Rick Energy on Monday, Rick's like calling him on the phone and being like, hey, you're a guest on Big Rick Energy, impromptu. And so it was just listening to JR. Just be game, just be really nice and but he's like calling JR and quizzing him on sports.
Wait a second, that was on Monday? Okay, on Monday. So here's the funniest, I'm glad that Ben Mankiewicz is on the show right now. I got a call from Rick that I couldn't answer because I was in the middle of playing Dungeons and Dragons. I wonder if he was calling me to be on that show.
That's exactly what it was. If it was around,
and I was doing what he probably imagined I was doing. It was right after 6. That's funny. Okay.
He called you, you didn't pick up. And so
I couldn't, I was on voice chat.
Like he called Jank, did some Steelers trivia with Jank. Everyone's got to watch Big Rick Energy Mondays after post game because he does Sporkle quizzes and just like calls people like his grandparents and his mom.
Oh, I like Sporkle. We used to do that around the studio. Yeah, that used to be fun. Okay, Brooke used to do a bunch of those. Over on Twitch, Lynn Ann gifted 2 tier 1 subs. Brandy Lou gifted 5, and Wister gifted 5 as well. Thank you to all of you for doing that. Really do appreciate it. Super Solution says the chemistry from these two is absolutely amazing. I smile hearing terrible news all the time. We make it work.
There's sparks, John.
There. That's what that is. Sparks. Okay, anyway, why don't we jump into the main story of the why did I look back at the camera?
I'm listening. I just like listening to you. I just like
me and the B-roll from now on. We can get B-roll of Brett. We'll use that. How about that? Anyway.
B-roll, that's my nickname.
Hold on, Forbeszilla says, I demand Sprocket in exchange for not having JR today. Not having JR makes my heart sad. Look, that seems reasonable, but if I could produce a Sprocket right now, that'd be weird because he's gone.
It's not weird because frequently you look after Sprocket when they leave town, which is just once a year to go to spring training. But
okay, now with that, let's do this. Matt Gaetz is apparently being investigated for a number of crimes that, considering like recent American politics, one would think a lot of people on the right would take very seriously. And they're very much not. But let's give you the details. This is a long and weird and winding story that he has chosen to make as weird as possible. But basically, Representative Matt Gaetz, Republican of Florida and a close ally of former President Donald Trump, is being investigated by the DOJ over whether he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old and paid for her to travel with him. Investigators are examining whether Mr. Gaetz violated federal sex trafficking laws. A variety of federal statutes make it illegal to induce someone under 18 to travel over state lines to engage in sex in exchange for money or something of value like hotel rooms and things like that. The Justice Department regularly prosecutes such cases, and offenders often receive severe sentences. You can receive 15 years for a charge like that. Now, we don't know a lot. What we do know is that the investigation was opened in the final months of the Trump administration under Attorney General William Barr. Given his national profile, senior Justice Department officials in Washington, including some appointed by Mr. Trump, were notified of the investigation. So you're gonna hear a lot about this being a witch hunt and this being a Dem conspiracy theory. Maybe, but it's deep then because apparently it was Barr set it up. So, or at least okayed it. So, and again, as we give more details, we don't know that he definitely did this or what he definitely or definitely did not do. All we can say is that he is being investigated for these things. So we're gonna have more, Brett, but what are your initial thoughts about this?
It depends on if you ask my head or my heart. My head says do exactly what John said. My head says, let's look into the facts, let's investigate, get to the bottom of this. That's what my head says, and that's my official position. What I'm about to say is not my official position, but rather what my heart is saying. And my heart is saying, oh my God, he totally did it. This guy who's creeping over Tiffy Trump, this guy who's like hanging out with Nestor, even though he's not really related to him and like no longer with mama, I just have to say, like, my heart is picturing Matt Gaetz cruising, whatever Florida streets, looking for, hanging out by the high school liquor store, offering to buy like Boone's Farm for teens. Oh, that's what my heart's saying, John. And it's backed up by his criminal record of being kind of
the alcohol part, sure.
Yeah, yes. And then also just the thing where he's like, yo, my dad will take, my dad expunges stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm Matty Gaetz. My dad'll expunge it. I don't care. You guys want? Hey, I'm gonna buy tamales for everyone. Tamales and tequila shots. Let's do it. Matty Gaetz' house. I don't know if anybody saw the HBO doc where they're like out there and it's like the cesspool. I forget, the swamp by HBO, and the whole thing. Just watch the first 2 minutes of it. You'll know Matt Gaetz. He's exactly like what I just acted out.
I read that he apparently grew up in the Truman Show house. Weird, but apparently true. Anyway, not that it matters. So look, Brett, as I said, we often disagree. I think it's important that we disagree. And I'm going to look for a place to do that in, because the whole head heart thing, 100% there with you. I mean, this isn't CNN, this isn't MSNBC. I don't know what I am or what this career is, but whatever it is, it allows me to say, look at the dude. It doesn't mean he did it. It definitely doesn't mean that he did it. But I mean, look at him and just think about all that you've heard from him. Doesn't seem impossible. That's all I'm saying.
It's just horrifying that like we have a federal age of consent, don't we? It just seems like it is illegal to induce someone under 18 to travel over state lines to engage in sex. That to me sounds like it's a federal law.
Yes,
right?
It is.
For which he is responsible to draft. Like that's the thing. His job is to know federal laws and make them.
Oh, we're gonna get to his effect on federal laws soon. Don't worry about that.
We've got that, but not only that, but like the act of the QAnon group that he feeds so into, and their proclivity for ranting about secret child sex trafficking
by political elites. So Marjorie Greene has put out a statement about this. Remember, she's the QAnon rep. What side do you think she comes out on this?
Well, I think she's gonna stick to her principles and say, listen, there was child sex trafficking that we've been talking about for years and years, and Matt Gaetz, he seems like the shoe fits. She's gonna go against Matt Gaetz because she has integrity.
No, she said it's a witch hunt and you can't trust anything the media says. So anyway, remember, she really cares. Like I've always said, they really, really care about purely hypothetical pedophilia. Real pedophilia, they don't give a damn about. But purely hypothetical pedophilia, they're not big fans of. Anyway, the last bit of information that we really have about this investigation is that it apparently is part of a broader investigation into a political ally of Mr. Gaetz called Joel Greenberg, who was indicted last summer on an array of charges, including sex trafficking of a child and financially supporting people in exchange for sex, at least one of whom was an underage girl. He's been seen photographed with this individual and things like that. Again, that doesn't prove that he did anything, but as part of the investigation, at least one local politician has already been shown to have done this. So, the news gets crazy sometimes. The news yesterday for Gaetz was that he was thinking about joining Newsmax. Things move fast, and if you don't slow down every once in a while, anyway.
Well, those things aren't.
Final thought on this.
Those things aren't separate. Next aspect. I would say that those things aren't necessarily separate. Like it seems like if you had this kind of scandal brewing and it did not bode well for your electoral chances, then you would try to find an out quickly and definitely get something else out there in advance of this story that would either kind of cover for it, distract from it, or say basically people are going after him because they want to ruin his chances of doing anything in the future.
Yeah, good point. Okay, let's turn to some other aspects on this. Now that you know what Matt Gaetz is being investigated for, I just want to add a little bit of context. And the context is in some cases substantive, in some cases not. It just adds up to Matt Gaetz really does seem to be doing a lot of stuff that hurts his image when these charges start to be talked about when the investigation is out there. Little things like even recently, less than a week ago, when Elon Musk tweeted that if there's ever a scandal about me, please call it Elon Gate. And Matt Gaetz responded, deal, I want Gatesgate. It's like a week before the gate. And by the way, there's different teams on this. Gatesgate is one team. Personally, I'm for Pizzagates, but I don't know, you can decide for yourself, but that's out there. Little bits from his past, like journalist Matt Fuller, who had tweeted in 2019 that he could confirm Matt Gaetz was dating a college student while he was a member of Congress. Now, I don't know what age that college student was, presumably not 17, but I don't know. It starts to push you in the direction of thinking maybe it's not impossible that he'd be interested in a 17-year-old. There's a little funny stuff like this, Brett, in response to a tweet from Bebe Rexha. There's no age that you can't be sexy. He had retweeted, I say we change Florida's welcome signs to this. Just funny. I think she's talking about being older and still being sexy, but it's still funny. Brett, they say that there's a tweet for everything. There's always a tweet. Why is there always a tweet? Why can't people just keep some of their issues to themselves?
It's crazy because this is what's crazy about it, is that QAnon folks will go so deep into like the capitalization patterns and basically the equivalent of like numerology to find out how long words are and how many spaces there are, trying to find the hidden code in everything that exposes the truth of a secret cabal of satanic pedophiles. And there these jagoffs are putting it right in your faces. You don't need, like, you can put on your 3D glasses. It won't change the fact that it's plain as day in front of you that this guy is a super big creepo. And they try to get away with
creepo. We don't know yet, but definitely a creepo.
And what's so weird about it is, sorry, people are yelling outside. Yeah, that's it. What's so weird about it is that the Republicans will go after people who like make an artistic music video that shows Satan, right? They'll go after you because you're using imagery to make a point. But if you're out there saying, no, Alan Dershowitz, there shouldn't be an age of consent. Matt Gaetz, yeah, there's no age where it's too young for me to say you're a hottie patati with a banging body. Spring break, South Padre 2021. Like, come on, man, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and look, and again, I think he was talking about people being older, but some things just line up sometimes. Like someone sent to me, Daybook has an internship posting for the office of Congressman Matt Gaetz. That was posted today. I'm assuming it was set up in advance, but I don't know. When like the big story about him is the 17-year-old sex trafficking, I'd wait, maybe. Is it paid? I don't know. That seems like an important detail. But yeah, it just, if you make your whole image being this sort of aggressive, abrasive jerk who gets into weird, like he's so try hard that's like you alluded to the Tiffany Trump thing. Like he like opts into these weird things, and we haven't really talked about on the show really at all the whole Nestor thing because I don't want to get into anyone's family, but there's just a lot of weird stuff about him. Again, none of this any more than his face necessarily means that he committed crimes. We will see what happens in this investigation that began under the Trump administration. But in the court of public opinion, it doesn't put him on initial really firm footing, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, let's get to an even weirder thing. So the night of the revelation that Congressman Matt Gaetz was being investigated for possible criminal sex trafficking, he was on Tucker Carlson's show. And Tucker Carlson loves a good scandal when it's a Democrat. When it's a Republican, slightly different. And you can immediately tell how different it is from the way he introduces Matt Gaetz, as you'll see.
Late this afternoon, ran a story saying that Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz is under federal investigation for playing some role in sex trafficking and potentially having a relationship with a 17-year-old girl. There are very few details in major news outlets tonight about this story. We have no background on it all and not even any very informed questions. Instead, we've invited Congressman Gaetz on the show to respond to these stories and give us his view of them. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how he treats all of these scandals involving politicians. I don't have any details. I haven't even really prepared questions because I care so little about this. I figured I would just turn it over to him and let him say whatever he wants. Brett, that seems like a consistent way that he's I think that was how we treated the Swalwell thing, by the way.
That's the thing. This is one of his two modes. One is the one that you're implying he has, which is like, I am prepared. But he frequently, Tucker's move is to do this, is to be like, there's no conceivable way for me to do journalistic investigations. I don't have anybody. I don't know any journalists here at Fox News. But they won't even let us ask the question. And he thinks the questions are all of journalism. It's surprising to me that he has people that he interviews because he seems to be so allergic to answers. Like his whole show, half the show is him just asking questions. I don't even know. Is it possible? They didn't want you to ask a question. What is a laptop? What is a Hunter? What is a Biden? Go do the investigation, buddy. But that's what's great about this. And what we'll find out through the course of this interview is that Tucker Carlson thinks that Matt Gaetz would also be good at the nonsense messaging. He thinks that only a total moronic idiot would come on Tucker Carlson tonight and not be prepared with sane things to say, at least in the context of getting through to the people who watch that show. But as we'll discover, Tucker Carlson is blown away by how straight up stupid, entitled. And if this was, we're in the NCAA tournament right now, it's like he didn't show up to play today.
Yeah, but he did show up. And so here's what we've got. Here's the beginning of Gaetz's explanation. Now, I want you to pay attention to a couple things here. Pay attention to what he says he didn't do and what he doesn't address at all in this video.
It's a horrible allegation and it is a lie. The New York Times is running a story that I have traveled with a 17-year-old woman, and that is verifiably false. People can look at my travel records and see that that is not the case. What is happening is an extortion of me and my family involving a former Department of Justice official. On March 16th, my father got a text message demanding a meeting wherein a person demanded $25 million in exchange for making horrible sex trafficking allegations against me go away. Our family was so troubled by that, we went to the local FBI. And the FBI and the Department of Justice were so concerned about this attempted extortion of a member of Congress that they asked my dad to wear a wire, which he did with the former Department of Justice official. Tonight, I am demanding that the Department of Justice and the FBI release the audio recordings that were made under their supervision and at their direction, which will prove my innocence and that will show that these allegations aren't true. They're merely intended to try to bleed my family out of money.
Okay, his family was incredibly rich. Look into that story. It's fun and dirty and all that. But okay, so Brett, he says, I did not travel with any woman. That's not, I mean, I guess that's where the crime really comes in, but that's not all of the public's concern necessarily in the story. He didn't say he didn't do anything else. So we'll get to the extortion thing, but first of all, what do you think about that?
It's illegal to travel with someone who's under 18. But if you fly them out when you're already on the campaign trail, I mean, I wasn't traveling with her. Like if we go to dinner, if we go to a motel and do the nasty, it's a get out of jail free card if I didn't pick her up and take her there. Like that's what it sounds like to me. The other thing is like, this is an extortion just intended to take money from my family. You almost hear him at the end, want to break into, and I need that money. I want it, it's mine. My daddy worked so hard so I could have all the money for hair volumizers.
Yes. So look, that's what he wanted to make it about, the possible extortion, which by the way, again, even though I don't know why we give all of these disclaimers, because everyone on the right is always going to pretend that we're rushing to judgment, even though how many times have I said that we have no idea if he did or not? But anyway, I'll say it again. We don't know. And look, if there is someone in the DOJ trying to extort him, that's really bad. Now, you can extort someone about something that someone did that was illegal. So it doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't do it, but we should definitely know about that. And look, the fact that it was begun under Trump doesn't mean that someone in the DOJ couldn't be trying to extort him. That's totally possible. And again, wouldn't prove that he didn't actually do it. But so that's sort of a weird thing to make it about. But it gets weirder. Matt Gaetz decides in his Tucker Carlson interview last night to weirdly bring Tucker Carlson into it in a way that I don't think Tucker Carlson knew was gonna happen, and he certainly wasn't happy about. Let's watch.
I'm not the only person on screen right now who's been falsely accused of a terrible sex act. You were accused of something that you did not do. And so you know what this feels like. You know the pain it can bring to your family. And you know how it just puts people on defense when you're accused of something so salacious and awful.
Yeah, you know what else puts people on defense? When their guest alleges that they did this thing or were falsely accused. Brett, don't ever pull that on the damage report.
I am not the only person on the screen right now. And you know that feeling you have, John?
Like fear about, I'm starting to finish the sentence in my head.
I know, I'm thinking of a lot of stuff too, but I'm not gonna share it because what you did to those kittens, John, I haven't done. I'm not the only person who's been accused of picking up kittens by their tails and throwing them.
It's not throwing, it's swinging and releasing. Throwing's illegal, swinging and releasing is not. Anyway, yeah, no, Tucker Carlson's not happy about that.
That's what Tucker's done. Tucker's like, all right, we're equivocating about like who traveled with whom on the same plane. Like I'm used to that. That's my wheelhouse. Like very carefully worded defenses and then distractions.
Yeah.
But you brought up people accusing me of doing terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things. I'm done with you, bud. And it doesn't get better from there. And I just want to bring back the fact that he did that earlier when we played that video. Ida pointed this out yesterday. Matt Gaetz tells people that his dad wears a wire.
That is pretty funny. But anyway, so credit to Matt Gaetz though for finally making Tucker Carlson's blank expression context appropriate, because he was trying to keep it together. Wait, what is he doing? Now it's only fair for us to give Tucker Carlson a chance to respond to that. So here is his response to what Matt Gaetz just insanely said there.
You just referred to a mentally ill viewer who accused me of a sex crime 20 years ago. And of course, it was not true. I never met the person. But I do agree with you that being accused falsely is one of the worst things that can happen, and you do see it a lot.
Yeah, and it's even worse when you're reminded of it live on TV. So look, I honestly don't even know the details of that particular allegation that Tucker Carlson was making it about. I don't know for sure if that's actually what Matt Gaetz was talking about, because I am old enough to remember that Tucker was accused of sexual harassment last year by a recurring guest of Fox News that alleged that multiple hosts, including Tucker Carlson, had sexually harassed her. This is Kathy Aru. You can see interviews with her giving the details. That was not 20 years ago. It was not a mentally ill person that had never met him. It was a woman who was repeated on his show and said that he sexually harassed her. But he didn't want to make it about that, interestingly.
Also, there's a difference between a mentally ill viewer or any random viewer saying, I had sex with Tucker Carlson, and a Bill Barr sanctioned investigation originating in a friendly administration's Department of Justice, continuing an investigation into whether you did this.
Yeah. Well, look, the Matt Gaetz Tucker Carlson interview just keeps on giving. So he's going to give a little bit more detail, Matt Gaetz will, about some of what they got up to together. Matt Gaetz and Tucker Carlson didn't know that they were these kinds of buddies, but anyway, let's take a look.
Again, I only know what I've read in the New York Times. I can say that actually you and I went to dinner about 2 years ago. Your wife was there and I brought a friend of mine, you'll remember her. And she was actually threatened by the FBI, told that if she wouldn't cop to the fact that somehow I was involved in some pay-for-play scheme, that she could face trouble. And so I do believe that there are people at the Department of Justice who are trying to smear me. Providing for flights and hotel rooms for people that you're dating who are of legal age is not a crime.
Well, yes, what you just defined would not be a crime, but if they're not legal age, then that would actually be a crime. And I understand some people get confused about this because they say, well, they're saying that she's 17, and note that they're all like, this is a 17-year-old woman. They're really focusing on the woman part. 17, yes, that is the age of consent in some states, and that is why, in theory, he might not be in trouble for breaking state laws, but for sex trafficking, that is not the case. And so he's trying to define himself out of suspicion. All he's doing is defining what not breaking a crime looks like. What we need to find out is whether you qualify for that, and that we don't know.
Yeah, that makes total
sense. But it's
sense.
Weird to make it about a dinner with Tucker Carlson. And Tucker, his face went from blank to like, oh, he doesn't like it.
You're just like, if there were across the same table doing this interview in a pre-COVID world, Tucker would just be kicking him under it. Like, shut up. What are you doing? And that's like me going, John, remember, before I was married, I brought a lot of random women. We had dinner with some that you remember. I don't remember her name, but she was there, and we hung out together. So Tucker, not only did I just bring up some disproven allegation that I'm not going to be too specific about, and you can kind of change it to define which allegation of sexual misconduct against you think is most easily dismissible, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's one thing. The other is, hey, Tucker, you know how we all were hanging out with the person in question at dinner? There's like
making
headlines,
him a witness,
and that which is, and these things are kind of annoying when mainstream media does them, but it's Matt Gaetz, and we've already done all the disclaimers, like allegedly investigation. But like, there's all these things. CNN's like, hey, do we got any legal experts who could say that Tucker's now a witness? And there's like 10 of them are like, gotcha, he is.
That's a weird legal strategy. Matt Gaetz likes, I guess he was born into the easiest possible situation, so now he's going for challenge mode in his legal defense.
And anyway, to get out of legal trouble. Like, another thing we need to underscore, his dad has gotten him out of legal trouble in the past. So it's not just that he's never encountered an obstacle before. It's that when he does, people just remove them for him after he, shotguns 10 beers and runs head first into those hurdles.
Now let's put a cap on the interview though. After he finally, for him blessedly, gets rid of Matt Gaetz, here is what Tucker Carlson had to say.
If you just saw our Matt Gaetz interview, that was one of the weirdest interviews I've ever conducted. That story just appeared in the news a couple of hours ago. And on the certainty that there's always more than you read in the newspaper, we immediately called Matt Gaetz and asked him to come on and tell us more, which, as you saw, he did.
So like, you had him on to defend himself, like you want those things to go away. Is that what happened? Did that help Matt Gaetz? Did it help Tucker Carlson? So he doesn't like that he's involved in it, but he's like trying to. That's that's the most honest I think he's been, just in terms of facial expression and body language. He was deeply uncomfortable. I wonder what he really thinks about that experience.
It's amazing, and it's difficult to lose Tucker unless you're like a Republican business person during one of the like every third Wednesday when Tucker decides to become a populist. Like, that's the only Republican figures, traditionally Republican figures that Tucker will back away from, right? He had someone on recently where he's like, thank you so much for telling us how fascism's the way forward in America. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm really glad that after you said fascism, I'm glad you came here to share that perspective. And after that, and the dozens of other Tucker interviews where he's like, thank you, crazy. Thank you for that.
Exactly.
This was so nuts that afterwards, Tucker's like, we have 20 seconds for me to legally and rhetorically distance myself from Wackadoodle Boy that just came in? Cool. All right, I'm gonna do that. Let's bump the Hunter Biden laptop story by about 15.
Oh God. Okay. Well, look, we got one last little bit on this, and this is the update as of this morning. Like we've been able to distance ourselves a bit from that interview. So as of this morning, what does Republican leadership think about Matt Gaetz, the allegations that have been made against him? Well, Kevin McCarthy was on Fox and he was asked about this. Watch.
Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida, and you've been very vocal that Congressman Eric Swalwell should be stripped of his ability to serve on the Intel Committee because of a reported relationship with a Chinese spy. He serves on the National Security Committee. You say that's a national security threat on the Intel Committee. So by that same logic, will you take any action to remove Matt Gaetz from the Judiciary Committee while he's under investigation by the DOJ over whether he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old and paid for her to travel with him? That's something he denies, but that would be a violation of federal sex trafficking laws.
Look, I haven't heard from DOJ. I haven't been able to talk to Matt Gaetz yet. I just read the story. Those are serious implications. If it comes out to be true, yes, we would remove him if that was the case. But right now, as Matt Gaetz says, it is not true, and we don't have any information. So let's get all the information. We did have the FBI come to us and tell us about Eric Swalwell.
Yeah, and then he goes on to try to make it about Eric Swalwell and all that. So look, them saying we'll do X does not mean they'll do X, but they're at least saying it. That's more than I think we generally can expect when one of their own is accused of something.
They've lowered everyone's expectations so far. So totally. What he just said is like, listen, if these things are true, I'm gonna reserve judgment, but if they're found unequivocally to be true, I am going to back away from this guy, right? Well, obviously, unequivocally. He's gonna test the hell out of whether he can equivocate about that every single step of the way. And know that in his heart of hearts, he does not like Matt Gaetz. There's no way he likes Matt Gaetz. He hates Matt Gaetz, he hates Donald Trump, he hates everyone that's made him bend over even anywhere remotely close to backwards at the beginning. And since that he's had to start doing that, he's twisted himself into a pretzel. He hates Matt Gaetz, but he will say like unequivocally, if it turns out, I'm gonna reserve judgment on this, but if judgment is passed down unequivocally, I'm coming down on that side. Now let's get back to speculating about Eric Swalwell. Like, I don't care.
I'd really prefer to do that.
Well, personally, I don't, right, so there's his double standard and hypocrisy. So his on the merits, his argument's stupid, and then obviously his hypocrisy is exposed in the same breath. Like, I don't care about Eric Swalwell. Sometimes he's good on Twitter. Like, I don't care. And by all accounts, Eric Swalwell was like, oh, this person, FBI, I'll tell you about it. And then the FBI went and told people about it. That's how the FBI came to you, Kevin, because Swalwell told him about it by the accounts that I've read. But yeah, so he doesn't care. He's not an honest actor and never has been.
No, but what he was asked about one other aspect of this, and this is one of the weirdest bit of context that we mentioned before, which was that Gaetz had been the sole vote against a human trafficking bill. Here's that.
Idea why Congressman Gaetz was the only Republican to vote against the federal government in terms of the trafficking money, the funds?
For human trafficking? No, I have no idea whatsoever why he would vote against it.
That's not a defense. I mean, that might go to Brett's point there. But I want to make very clear, because a lot of people are mentioning this. I want to make sure that everyone understands. This was a bill that was sponsored by both of the Republican senators of Matt Gaetz's state. And when we say that he was the only no vote, it's not just in his party and it's not just in the House. He was the only vote in the entirety of Congress against it. Everyone else voted for it. Every single Republican in the House, every single Republican in the Senate. And he was against the human trafficking bill,
including Rand Paul. So it's not like someone who always votes against any spending of any dollars.
Yeah,
voted no based on that. Like, cover blown, bud, cover blown.
It's a weird one. He says, my constituents didn't send me here to create more government.
So
That's
I mean,
this is a weird one, man. And why are the Q people like you're right? The Q people had figured out from the call sign of the ship stuck in the Suez Canal that it was loaded up with babies for Hillary Clinton, but they can't look deep enough into why this one guy was the only person to vote against the human trafficking bill.
So weird.
If Hillary Clinton had voted against the human trafficking bill, I think they would have taken notice. I'm gonna say that. I know it's bold. I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. That's all for Matt Gaetz for today. We'll see what damage he does tomorrow. Because the thing is, we're almost certainly not gonna have updates on the investigation this week, but he might go on Sean Hannity or something. Anyway, so let's read a few of your super chats before we move on to one or two more quick little stories. Miasa Dragon sent in a super chat saying, "Hey John, I've been begging for validation. Just greeting my name on air would suffice, bro. Well, consider yourself both greeted and sufficed, bro. Thank you for watching." Okay. Lawrence Wells says, "Hello, Dragons. In regard to Biden's plan, it's just a little smaller. It's still good. It's still good. I just hope we don't have to follow that up with it's gone. What do you think will happen of Matt Gaetz gate?" Well, we have given your thoughts about that. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the infrastructure bill. I mean, if he really wants to be considered more bold than Obama and all that, here is one of the big ways that you do that. Maybe we'll see. Okay. Miasa Dragon asked once again for validation. Well, you've had it. Okay, Christopher Gothberg says, "John, for your next top 10 list, can you do top 10 most punchable GOP faces?" I don't know, we might get in trouble for that. And I would probably just make it all politicians, not just GOP. There are some punchable Democrats, so, but anyway,
I would just change the word punchable. If we're workshopping this, I would change the word punchable to anything else that is not violent.
Sure, that sounds good.
We all know what we're talking about.
Yeah, Midwood says Matt Gaetz, My Pillow Guy, and Sidney Powell are smoking the same Kraken, which apparently soon you'll be able to do legally in New York. So that's awesome. Okay, Bart in the Twitch section says, "John, I think Skynet's plan of making right-wing conservatives terminators, infecting the American political process is actually happening. I have side-by-side photo proof of the existence of Matt Gaetz and Dave Rubin, who do look pretty similar in those photos there."
That's true.
Anyway, and Kaladin says, "I did not throw the kittens, I used a catapult, which is legal." Mike Gonzalez says, "John, have you seen the photo that surfaced of Gaetz with a group of high school girls?" Yes, that doesn't, it's the weird context, but it doesn't necessarily prove anything. He's in a cafeteria or something, trolling. Anyway, finally, I have to randomly ask just because it occurred to me for some reason. Brett, have you seen Bad Trip yet?
No.
Oh, you gotta see it, man. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Anyway, I don't know why I thought of that, but one of the
I did that thing where like you turn on is it a prank show?
It's Borat style. It is like pranks that are turned into a narrative, basically. And Tiffany Haddish is on it.
Got a bad taste in my mouth after freaking his
Borat
partner
2?
came to Pop Trigger. He came to Pop Trigger. I accidentally slept through it, Eric Andre. And
Oh my God.
I know I woke up at like 11:30. I was like, this never happens. And Hassan filled in for me and was like on cloud 9. But the other time he had his partner come in and did the same exact thing where he did worse, way worse, like, stuffed salsa in his pants in front of the show. I don't like that. That stuff makes me uncomfortable. And if it's not for a point, it's not to make a point. If it's just being mean to people, I really don't like it.
Sure, I feel like most of the humor in this that I saw was he was looking bad. And I don't generally like prank stuff, but it was funny. Anyway, no point anyway, just was curious. So with that, why don't we, actually, why don't we go to the poll results before we jump back into this? Because we did ask you what you thought about the course of the pandemic, if we were likely to get above 100,000 cases a day once again, despite the vaccination. Let's take a look at those results and see what everyone thinks. Okay, it looks like 87% of you think that we will once again spike above 100,000 cases a day. Whew.
Here's what I like about it.
Out there.
Here's what I like about it is whoever took this screen cap doesn't know that you can change your vote afterward. It just wants you to know, like you can typically, yeah. Anyways, this is inside like producer stuff. Typically, because it shows who you voted for.
Oh, the person who clipped that,
the person who did it voted against it.
I wonder who did it. Was it Norma? I wonder.
I don't want to know.
Anyway,
they probably clicked it so they could see the results and weren't paying. That's my guess. And weren't paying attention.
Sure.
I do that. but then I change it afterwards so it looks like, hey, you America, this is your vote.
Yeah.
Well, wait, hang on, let's see. Yes, I did, Sophie.
Okay. So people think that it is going to get worse. Let's talk about one of the little reasons why it might get worse, actually. Governor Ron DeSantis is one of a number of Republicans who've been coming out against vaccine passports, or basically requiring vaccinations for anything to try to limit the spread of COVID. That is consistent with the way he's approached this pandemic from the very beginning. And it is resulting in a fun little event that's going to be coming to Florida soon. It's billed as the Million Maskless March and Mask Burning. And its organizers say that April 10 marks 1 year of mask tyranny in Broward County. And we will mark that date with a celebration of freedom. It will feature recognition and prizes for those who have faithfully endured this last year. The mask burning is in full cooperation with local law enforcement and will be done in a safe and controlled manner. So that's good to know. That's good to know. You never know if this is going to be one of the right-wing events where it's done in conjunction with law enforcement, or they'll be trying to beat the cops to death. You never know which way this is going to go. Hopefully this is the former. Second, though, that they've faithfully endured this last year. Look, we've all endured this last year. Arguably, they've endured it the least because they haven't been being responsible. We have been the ones who've been limiting ourselves, wearing the mask, trying to be safe and responsible. They've been flouting it and shouting in the face of people working the cash register at Publix. That's not enduring, that's delighting. But they're gonna have this little mask burning, Brett. And by the way, no, what do you think? I got more, but what do you think?
I mean, I think exactly what you would expect someone to think, which is like, for me, my conclusion on mask wearing is it makes sense. I know in places where they have high population density that aren't in America, people wear masks anyway for those reasons and pollution. Like, it's not a crazy thing everywhere in the world to cover your face. People here think it's like this infringement of their fundamental rights when it's not. Everyone looks around and it makes sense. And this isn't one of those things that's like, and I get real cynical about government overreach, but this doesn't feel like it. I would tell you if I thought it was.
Exactly. So I want to give you a little bit more from the event description. They say signs are very important. Signs with 3 to 6 big, bold words are the best. Masks are slavery. No more masks. Masks off children. No vaccine passports are good examples. Broward County government is pushing the experimental vaccine hard. So signs against forced vaccinations are also encouraged. So of course you want to get out in front of that. I mean, there are no forced vaccinations, but you should totally make that what your signs are about. And isn't it shocking that the people that think that masks are slavery, what do you know? They also don't think that we should get the vaccine. So don't do the thing that would protect you from it until we develop the vaccine that you probably really want Trump to get credit for, but now don't want to actually take. And you want to encourage other people to not take it. So that's gonna be a fun event. Surely not gonna lead to more COVID. Definitely not.
I just want to say, when they say masks are slavery, my gut is those are two different things. Like, that's one thing I definitely can't go with them on, is that masks are slavery. But just to be safe, if they're taking volunteers to participate in an experiential proof that masks are indeed slavery, those very same people can be my slave for a while if they want to. So for a week, they wear masks. And for another week, they are slaves. And we'll see if they feel that those two experiences are the same. Afterwards, we'll compare and contrast, see how they like it.
Look, I respect your wielding of satire. For me, it's just enough to say, man, what a terrible person to compare like this. I'm a slave now. I've experienced the worst a human life could ever be forced to be, with the threat of violence and families being separated and rape and murder. This is as bad. Why have they done this to me? Imagine, like, when you're holding that sign, it's like, do you not get that? Are we the baddies? Do you think you're the hero of this story? when you're saying this is as bad as all the Harriet Tubman stuff I saw.
And
but
get
they
her
do
off
still
the
think
money. Get her off the money.
They're also
If
probably
she
not big
has
fans of Harriet
all
Tubman.
my money. That's what I love.
And by the way, can I just note, this is one of those things, one of the things I find very fascinating are things that you can't prove, but you know to be true, that every one of these people that are asserting that masks are slavery has at least once in their life said, slaves didn't have it that bad. Guarantee they think that slavery wasn't as bad as the libs want you to think it was.
Civil War was about economics.
Yeah.
It was about economics. Anyone who says it's slavery, it was about economics. What economics? American economics.
They got
Anyways, I would say that Britney Spears had a more cogent slavery argument in the song "I'm a Slave for You"
than their mask thing.
than their masks are slavery call.
Yeah, hashtag free Britney.
I love it, and I'm fine with them burning masks. I don't care. Burn an American flag, they'll murder you. And they don't realize that my defense of their flag burning protest is a pure version of First Amendment respect. Their mask burning protest than anything. They won't say. They'll say I'm canceling them for saying it's fine if you all get out there and burn masks and probably wear a mask so you don't cough from the smoke inhalation. That's
smoke of the masks. But, I can totally imagine a Borat sketch where he goes down there. He's got the thing with the flames, and he's like, "Let's burn them." So they're throwing them in. Then he starts handing out American flag masks, and they're suddenly in a very tough situation. What do I do?
I love it. That's the best way to do it.
Okay, Brett, thank you so much for stepping in. Really do appreciate you being on the show. We'll see what ends up happening with Friday. See what happens. But until then, Brett, thank you. What can we expect out of the TYT network for the rest of today?
The rest of today, the Young Turks airs at 3 p.m. So first of all, the one that you mentioned, the interview with Dr. Rashad Ritchie and the state representative who was arrested in Georgia, that is on The Conversation, which airs at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. And then, or about that time, just check. Basically, everyone should get notified.
5:30 p.m. Eastern time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time on tyt.com/live, and also Twitch. Representative Park Cannon will be joining Rashad Ritchie.
And then also the other thing is the Young Turks will feature John Iadarola for the first hour, Anando Vila, and alongside Anna Kasparian for hour 2 and post game. So everyone check that out, and you're really gonna love it. You're really gonna love it. And then Wednesday, my wife from the other, I'm like, what is on Wednesdays on Twitch? What is on Wednesday?
That's what I was pausing for.
My show. I was like, what is it? Because I know Jordan Yule's on Thursday.
Yes.
We got a new show coming out that we're not talking about. That's going to be really fun. Monday is Rashad Ritchie's show and Big Rick. Yes. Oh, my show, Happy Half Hour. Wednesdays, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, twitch.tv/TYT. I'll be drinking, but also talking about happy and ridiculous news.
Awesome, that'll be fun. Okay, Brett, thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of you at home. Before we close things out, I wanna read just a few more of your messages. Daniel says, Matt Gaetz has always been a tool. He held a rally in the party room in my restaurant and I had to kick them out because they were being racist. Oh, I wish that you had filmed that. Mazia says, finally employed after a year off, became a member and sharing more of the wealth. Can I be Noble Gas Dragon? That is funny and thank you. Very glad that you were able to get that job. That's awesome. Christopher Moore says, Brett and John, I effing love you guys. I hope JR is having a good vacation. Glad Brett could fill the void. He could. Glad for that as well. Over on Twitch, oh geez. Mayhem Mendez says, if Don Jr. is every ski movie villain rolled into one, Matt Gaetz is his creepy sidekick who weirds out everyone. Yeah, he'd be the guy who's like cheering like, yeah, Johnny, get him, as the bully punches someone. He definitely would be. Okay, Fiddlin' Nero says, sometimes I think Matt Gaetz is a Batman villain. The rest of the time, I think he's a Dick Tracy villain. It really depends on the day. It does. I wanted to thank some members for resubscribing, including Raven Mad Cat for 6 months. Why Not Octavius for 8. Equanimity for 7. Maria Paul DK for 9 months as TYT sub baby day has finally arrived. Much better than having a real baby. No gore, Okay, wow, that gets really graphic. Well, I'm glad that you resubscribed. Thank you. Anyway, Dr. Waggle Jones subscribed with Prime. Thank you for that. Ashes is getting their first poke tomorrow. That's awesome. Arth Mail subscribed for 5 months. Thank you to you and to everyone else. Really appreciate you being involved. As Brett said, I'm gonna be on the main show with Anna Kasparian for the first hour. So hope to see you then. And until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.